Hi, my name is Rory Canterbury. I'm your host today on Archery Talk 101. And we have Bill on the show again with us today, and we're going to catch up on what's going on in his world. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Hey, thank you for having me, Roy.
Maybe just for those that didn't get to see the first time you was on, maybe introduce yourself and tell us a little bit something about yourself, and then we'll get started into our show.
My name is Bill Iversen. I live in North Central Illinois. Um, I'm a bow hunter, outdoorsman, fisherman, archer. Though now I don't really, due to injuries and such, I don't really participate in traditional archery as much anymore, especially while hunting, just because it's physically demanding to me. So
Yeah, that's always a challenge. I've been going through some of those myself. I can't shoot my bow yet or shoot a gun or anything. I had a triple bypass in April, so
yeah,
I'm still recovering from that. And so yeah, you have to do what you can do, right?
right. Still get out in the field.
Yeah. Well, and I get to talk to archers from all over the world and hear all their hunting stories. And
Right.
so what's been going on since the last time we talked? I think it's probably about a year ago.
Right. Yeah, about a year or so. Not a whole lot has changed. Super busy with kid stuff. I got one we just took to college, Carthage University, one varsity football, and then my little guy who's 12. So I definitely got my hands full with kid stuff. Spread thin, but it's good. It's good time. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, it's kind of nice when you can spend time with the kids and going off to college and still have a basically almost a teenager and yeah,
Right.
it keeps you busy, that's for sure. So you getting out doing much hunting then or
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, right now we're I got a new farm that I've gotten acquired to, not that I own, but I've leased to be able to hunt on. So that looks extremely promising. My normal properties that I hunt, I have another one that it's been slow so far. I have some okay stuff on camera, nothing to write home about, but it's definitely slow. We definitely got some core animals there that are there full time year round, and I figure in about a week or so the transient bucks will be starting to pop up. I'm starting to get, here and there you'll see one that you haven't seen before, nocturnally come in and check a doe bed or whatever and that kind of thing.
yeah, it keeps you on your toes when you don't have a lot of time out in the field. So nice
Right.
about those cameras, they kind of help you
For
your
sure.
eyes so that you can don't have to be out there as much
Yeah, they're
when you get
definitely a
things
game
going on.
changer in my opinion, especially with the cellular cameras. The information is instantaneous right to your device, whatever phone, laptop, whatever.
Yeah, you just got to have good signal.
Right. Yeah, I have heard stories of guys that have them and they don't function just to do to, wherever their setup is, if they're, deep in the hardwood or whatever in a mountain, it may not.
Well, just at my house, in order for me to use my phone, I use the Wi-Fi to make my phone calls because
Oh,
we have such terrible signal here, and
right,
and we're only about 5 miles from the tower, but we're down in the valley, so it
right,
doesn't get out, and we're lucky if we have one bar, but what I just set up, it's like, well, use the Wi-Fi when it's available, and I get signal. Otherwise, I couldn't use my cell phone at all. That's
right.
why we still have a landline.
Really? Yeah, that's a rarity nowadays.
Yeah. Well, we otherwise we may not be able to call out or call
Right.
in. So it's kind of nice to have, that backup in there.
So, how have you been? Have you been able to get out at all, or are you going to be able to get out due to your surgery, or no?
I don't think so. I hadn't been able to draw my bow back yet,
Hmm,
and I definitely not going to pull a trigger on my hunting rifle. That would definitely hurt.
I bet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's too much for us right now. I'm still even working on I have to put pressure on it when I cough even, so it hurts the cough. So
Oh, I
there's
bet.
no way I'm gonna shoot more than a 9 mil.
Right. And I
Yeah.
assume they did it the old school way where they completely opened you up.
Oh yeah, I had to do a triple bypass,
Ah,
and they opened you up, and then 10 weeks after that, still hadn't healed, so they went back in again and put titanium plates in, and then of course now then everything was sore from my tricep to tricep, all the muscles hurt, and taking Tylenol 4 times a day, and even holding up one of these little, um, you know,
right,
700 milliliter bottles was too much weight.
right.
I just couldn't lift it, so I'm getting back, but I can start doing stuff, but it don't take long and everything starts getting sore. So yeah, I doubt I'm gonna be able to get out of it all this year.
Yeah,
Um
I get it.
I,
There's no rush,
I'm
no sense in rushing it.
yeah. Well, and the bad part was is the guy who one of the farms we hunt on his property, he also works on the cars once in a while when we run into something that we don't feel like doing or I can't do. Right
Right.
now, I can't do a whole lot of stuff, but we was over there and he says, "Yeah, I seen a couple nice bucks come walking down his fence line." It's like, yeah, that's where my ladder stands at, right along that fence line. It's like, I'm not going to be able to hunt it this year. Maybe my son will, but
Right. That's one of those I could have done without knowing that, buddy. Thank you.
well, actually, that's actually good news because in that area, very seldom caught any deer during the day. Now,
Mhm.
this last winter, for some reason, I had all my trail cameras out. Went to pick them up, not a single picture. Somehow, I must have when I got them on there. I figured all the batteries would probably be dead, but no, there was no pictures at all. I must not have got the camera turned back on when I
Ah,
changed the cards, so all of them was off, and so I didn't get any pictures at all. So uh, we had a couple of small buck and kind of medium sized buck was going through there, um, quite a few does going through there, but from about 10 o'clock at night to 4 o'clock in the morning is when it's going through. And the
right.
fact that he's seen two nice bucks during the day, yeah, that was a good sign.
Right, right.
Even though I didn't catch them on camera, at least I know there's something walking around there during the daylight. And we have had some come through during the daylight, but most of them come through at night. Because there's nothing really that keeps them there, during
Right.
the day. There's no cover. There's just trees along the fence lines.
Right. On that new property, I have two. And kind of just looking at what picks I got, I'd say one of them is going to be in that 145 to 150-ish range, like right around there. Real nice buck, real tall tine, but definitely mature animal, 4.5 over easily in that range.
Yeah,
And there's another one, probably in the 130s, something like that, which is might be a little bit a year or two younger. And they are both regular. Like you can time your watch to it. You got them at 11:30 to 12, right in that range. They're coming by, and then again, either one or the other, in that like anywhere from 4:30 to 6:30 in the morning. The problem with that area for me is I got does that bed like almost on time. Now I set this stand up and this camera up in July, and I got does that are bed like right there. So it's tricky. It's like you roll the dice, you pull in, and if the camera triggers, if they turn their head or something and they're there, it's like I'm sitting in the truck until they get up and do their thing, and I could somehow sneak in there because the last thing I want to do is blow that area out.
right,
It's pretty primo, and the cool thing about that area, it's on a well now this year it's soybean, so they alternate corn bean,
right.
every year. Um, and the property owner's house isn't but I don't know 200 yards from where that stand location is. It's right there. Like they'll be out doing whatever, yard work or on a tractor or, just whatever, blasting music in the garage and no biggie. And you're like, oh man, this is, most people would think this is going to blow it for me. And really the deer are just used to it. But the backyard area of that property is all hardwood. So they're coming out of that hardwood, cutting right through the yard and going right into the field to feed. And like I have my stand is set right at the transition of backyard, and then there's maybe 8 to 10 yards of unmowed tall grass, and then the crop. So in that tall grass where the transition is right where they're bedding. So it
Yeah.
looks like I said it looks primo, and I'm very confident about that area. I'm just waiting to get the right opportunity. As I posted on Facebook the other night, I got an opportunity to sit that one last night, a nice pick, from up in the stand over there. I wasn't able to make a play on anything, nothing I was willing to, burn a tag on. or
Right.
create a commotion in that field this early. But in I feel in a week or so, it's really going to be on hard. I think that at least for my location, they're starting to spot check, I believe, in the evenings. Working scrape lines really heavily. Um, One of the companies that I work with, Nose Down Sense, they make a fantastic product. I don't know if you do mock scrapes out there, but they make some fantastic products for that. And then all the way, for all phases of the hunt.
Yeah, that then the mock scrapes would be something that I probably would be good to use to when I get back out there to try
Right,
and get them there during the daylight hours. Because if you're going in and refreshing them in the morning or so when you
right,
go in, then they'll kind of see that that's time to get there and make sure you don't do them as you're getting to tree stand. Make sure a little bit later, maybe when you're leaving your tree stand or something.
right. So the older I get, it's I was just talking to my I was just talking about this with about sitting all day with one of my buddies. The older I get, it's like, man, my back's gonna be killing me. Them all day sits are it's gonna be rough. The older you get, the rougher it is for 10, 12 hours
Right.
or whatever. Or not 12, but 4 to 5 o'clock to 5 o'clock or whatever it might be. Maybe climb down for a quick snack or something, or move locations, go to an evening stand.
Yeah. Well, and as you sit, you get stiff, and then it's like, okay, I need to stand up for this shot, but I can't stand up.
Right.
I'm stuck. I can't move.
Right.
You, you kind of get that way, and that's something to think about too. Is are you going to try and stand a lot? Are you going to sit, or what are you planning on? And like you said, as you were getting older, it gets harder and harder to sit
Right.
there for those long hours, and that's what's nice about the camera. You can say, okay, I'm never see anything after 10 o'clock in the morning and nothing until about 4 in the afternoon. So,
Right.
at 10, you're just wasting time sitting there. Well, not wasting time. It's nice to be out there, but I mean,
For
it's
sure.
it's not a productive time to get down, go get something to eat or whatever. And
Right.
and I'm only uh 3 miles from the one hunting place and a mile from the other one I hunt. But the one that's real close is it's all this year it's all corn and corn up to the creek.
Okay.
And then you got the creek and then property on the other side with all the trees. But that we don't have permission to hunt on the other side of the creek. So we gotta hope either they come on our side of the creek or walking down the creek.
Right.
Because
Well,
you can shoot them in the creek, you just can't shoot them on the side of the hill.
personally, for me, what I'd rather do, now would be probably get in a little bit later, 7, 8. There's plenty of, especially specifically during the rut or the seek and chase.
Right.
There's plenty of evidence to support that more large and mature bucks have been taken between 10 and 2 p.m. That time frame versus like right now the early morning is when you're seeing most of or a lot of the movement. In a week or so, I think, like I said, that'll change, and that'll be
Yeah.
yeah, I'll still get out there early morning, but like in that peak when when you're just seeing all that craziness, when they're nose down bumping and pushing them and running them through fields and that, and it's on like crazy and they're fighting that. Yeah, I'll make sure 10 to 2, you're in there. That's the part of me, you got to get in there first light and sit until I can't see no more.
Right.
Sacrifice my back.
Yeah. Yeah. And then try and figure, okay, everything hurts. How do I get down out of my tree?
Right. Sound like a bowl of Rice Krispies when you stand up.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, there's a couple places I've hunted where, it's like clockwork, between 11:30 and 12, your deer were coming down the trail. It's like
Right.
every time I was there, they like guaranteed they're going to be coming down the trail. And that's public property that I don't hunt anymore. But, um, that's just something you got to learn the area. And, it's kind of nice, the one area that I, the owner did see some nice bucks coming down the fence line, and that's like, okay, that's good to hear.
Right.
They're coming down during the day, and we have seen them come down that fence line during the day. I know was it last year? I was out there during the rifle season, sitting up on top of the hill, and here comes this one doe down right past my ladder stand. Because I didn't want to sit in the ladder stand. I sitting on top of the hill because then I could have more options. Because with a rifle, I don't have to worry about being 20 yards away. I can be
Right,
100
right,
yards away. I can be 150 yards away. No big deal. So then you're less disturbing, and I was just sitting there and I had my camera on a tripod to video it, and this doe comes walking by right past my ladder stand on the other property we don't have permission to hunt,
right,
and it's standing there. It's like, okay, gonna come on my side of the fence. Now then two other does come running through that fence or through the field, and it took off with it.
right,
Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah. Once I get back on hunt, I'm gonna go check with that farmer and see if they're walking on his side of the fence, if it's okay if I go ahead and shoot them, because I don't want to shoot him on his property and then go.
right,
And one thing you don't think about, with archery is, the fact that, okay, here's the farmer's house. I have a clear shot to here. I can't shoot from here to here because even though I'm on a hill shooting down, the chances
right,
of the bullet going over there is slim. But it's like, okay, that is my dead zone. I cannot shoot anywhere, any deer in that area. I can't shoot till they leave. Well, they're going to be coming in or leaving past it, and then of course I got the farmer's house, and so you need to know
right.
where everything is at, and even with a bow, you need to know what's beyond your target, what's a safe area to shoot, what's not a safe area to shoot.
Right,
And, if you're bow hunting and you got a buddy out there, and a lot of times you might only be set up 100 yards apart,
right,
so where are they at? So, okay, I can't shoot that direction because, it's very easy as you draw back standing up. If something
right,
happens and that arrow launches, lots of times the arm will go up.
right.
If release breaks or you touch the trigger, it can easily go up on you, even though you're shooting down, bending down, but you're still going to draw straight because you don't drop that arm dropped. So
Right.
now then you got to learn,
And it,
whereabouts is a non-safe area direction to shoot. And
and just like you said, any number of unknowns. A stand, the stand could shift. You know how many times you're in a climber or whatever. Doom drops just enough to throw you off, and now there's a problem.
or you catch a branch you didn't see, and next thing you know, the arrow's flying up in the air, and 100 yards is nothing for an arrow.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't take a shot at an animal that far because one, I can't see that far good enough
No.
to see the animal and put the pin on it. 100 yards is, yeah, that's too far for me to shoot nowadays. And when I was
Right.
younger, I could see them and I could hit them there, but I
Right.
still
And
never took that long a shot. I've taken a 40-yard shot. My first one was 40, and since then my second shot at a deer, I hit it once and I took the second shot at 30. Other than that, I've never taken a shot over 20 yards, and most of them been 10 or right around 10 yards or less.
yeah,
And
exactly. Most there's guys all the time that you hear about West guys that'll they're pulling big poundage bows and they're taking long ball shots, and God bless them, but that ain't
yeah,
A, I can't even see that far, just like you said. B, I'm not set up for that. I don't practice that. I don't, everything that I do is not everything. Hardwood primarily. I do that one that I was in last night that sits on a field's edge, but for the most part, it's 10, 20s, in that range. Rarely, 30 probably, but anything more than that, I don't.
look,
It usually doesn't turn into that kind of a situation.
when you're in the trees, chances are you can't get a 20-yard shot.
Right. It's tight.
Yeah, I know. I've had some shots that are less than 10 yards.
Yeah.
The one I shot at the second shot at 30 yards is walking past my street, and I think I shot it about 5 yards, and it turned around and run back into the field, stood broadside to me, and was just kind of standing there. It would eventually fell over, but I says, okay, I still got arrows. It's within range. I'm going to shoot another arrow in it. What's the worst that can happen?
Right.
Well, we tracked it for a while because it went up top the hill and it made a right turn in all the brush and died in there. But um, so I'm using my safety belt and kind of leaning back to get around a tree to shoot it, and I stuck a second arrow through it, and of course it run off at that point up to top of the hill, and we walked around for a long time trying to find it, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, because we weren't finding any blood, and all of a sudden it took a right hand turn, and a little bit of a hill, it went down, and and it crashed underneath a bunch of bushes.
Right.
Um, but that's one of those things that if I got arrows and it's within range, I can hit it, I'm gonna take a second shot. Now, the first shot, I probably wouldn't have took it as a first shot
Right.
because it was a weird angle and it wasn't high percentage shot, so I wouldn't have took it as a first one. But I'd already stuck it basically what was a fatal shot in it the first time, and I just say if I stick a second one in there, if I hadn't done that, I'd probably just lay down right on the field
Right.
because it had stopped and it wasn't doing anything. It was just kind of standing there. So you just kind of take a chance and shoot them, and it's like, I'll take another shot.
Right. Yeah. Make sure get the job done cleanly, you know.
Yeah, because who knows? It may not have been a fatal shot, and if I
Right.
stick another one in there, because I knew where it was at, I had plenty of time. It wasn't moving or nothing, so I knew it was still, and I knew it was 30 yards away. So I put my 30-yard pin where I wanted it, and away it went. And it's kind of nice when you can stick a second one in them.
Yeah. Yeah. And just make sure you got it done properly.
Yeah, because two holes is better than one.
What what kind of broadheads were you using with that?
A Muzzy.
The old
Uh,
MX3?
yeah, the 3 blade 100 grain.
Right. Yeah,
That's the
it's
only
like
broadhead I've ever used. I haven't used any other ones. When I got my first bow, when I went up there, and of course, um, I got the first compound I shot was a bear whitetail too.
okay.
My brother bought it, and then I went to get me one, and I got one, and I go up there, and I'm looking for a bow, and she hands me one. I draw it back, and she says, "Well, how's that feel?" It's like, okay, I guess. I don't know. 32-inch draw length is what it was. I'm 29 and a half. About 20 years later, I figured out when I went to NFA's archery school, and to be an instructor as well. They said, well, you're 29 and a half. And I was shooting a 32-inch draw length bow. And that was on a Friday. And they said, well, Saturday, your bow has to be 29 and a half. There's no reason for you to show up because you can't learn the technique with your draw lengths too long. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, okay. So I showed up with 29 and a half inch draw length bow. And um, and then now I shoot 29. That
With the D
extra
loop or
half
no?
inch, yeah, with a D loop, yeah. That extra half inch shorter draw length means in the wintertime I don't need to put an arm guard on my big heavy coat because I don't hit it.
Yeah, it makes
I go
sense.
a half inch shorter, and it's comfortable for me. And the way I shoot and the way I teach it is I teach a closed stance where that arm goes straight out away from your body because that's the most efficient way to send that arrow, send everything straight to your target. Because
Right.
if you have a closed stance where that arm is in not straight out, as you shoot, that arm moves to the outside because you have to put pressure basically on the back of your hand to force it to go straight. And that's why I teach that way. And of course, a lot of martial arts training too that kind of got me, thinking that way. So when I learned it and got a little bit better at it, and it's like, okay, that makes more sense. And my practice technique without a bow is I have a piece of loop material that I have a loop on it fits on my thumb, and then my draw length. And then as I can shoot that, I can put pressure forward on it and I can shoot, and that string will go straight to my target. If it doesn't, my form is off. So that's the way I practice without actually having a bow.
Okay.
And I used to keep that in my 3D rig so that if something wasn't feeling right, I get that and I start playing that until that string would jump straight off my hand. Because if it hangs up on your hand, you're pushing it sideways. You can't consistently push that bow sideways.
Okay.
You see a lot of the Olympic archers, their arm is locked out. They have an arm guard on and a chest guard on, but their arm
Right.
is locked out straight. And that's basically what I'm doing. Except I have my arm bent, so when I shoot, straightens out. Where there's a straight, when it drops, the wrist just kind of drops down because they're not hanging on the bow. It's just kind of the weight of it because it's so far front heavy because of all that,
Yeah, all the
2 mile long
stabilizers and that you
stabilizer.
just see it like
Yeah,
roll down.
yeah. Um, I don't really like those real long stabilizers because then you have to put counterweights on them, and
Yep.
They don't work for hunting.
No, that's way
I
too much stuff to have 20 feet in the
I
air.
I go to all my shoots, if I was when I did do a few 300 rounds, I use my hunting bow. I shot at 70 pounds.
Right.
That's now I'm not sure how it's gonna take to get back up to 70, but um right now I can't even do 50 right now. Well, I'm using a weight machine and I'm pulling across my body and I'm at 30 pounds and I'm able to do it 20 times with doing both sides just so keep the muscles the same and
Right.
and I can still feel it in the chest just by the time I've done those like okay, I'm not ready to push it too hard yet.
Right. You'll get there. There's no reason
Yeah. Yeah, I'll
to
get
get
there.
crazy with it.
Yeah, I'm not going to hunt archery hunt this year anyway, so I've got time to recover for that and everything else so that I can get back into it because what happened the first time is, after 4 weeks, the bone was together, was starting to heal. Well,
Mhm.
then every time my elbows would move, it would start moving. And it just kind of, the wires, they just used stainless steel wires the first time. And then they started opening up, and next thing you know, the whole thing opened up, and then they had to go back in and pull it back together and put plates in. Now the bone won't move. If everything separates, you're going to separate a rib from that blade. And that yeah, it's before, it's like every time my elbows moved, the chest would move.
Oh, I
You could
bet.
feel it popping and it was like that 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 was and the only thing I could have done was just basically just sit there and not move my elbows until it healed. And that was like even eating or even sitting down playing cards, if that moving to do something in the cards that made it pop. And it's like, uh, so yeah, he said for me, he should have put plates in to start with. And he had another guy put plates in and ended up breaking the ribs loose. And he should put wires in for him. But he's like, you never know.
Yeah, I don't envy that. Doesn't
Yeah.
sound fun.
No, no, it wasn't. And the bottom of the scar was constantly draining until one day I looked at it. It's like, what is that in there? So the little black thing, and I started pulling out. Next thing I pulled out, what it was is when a stitch hadn't the internal stitches supposed to dissolve. Well, it hadn't.
Mhm.
It was sit there right at the bottom, and it's kept it just open. It drained. Oh, geez, probably well for the full 10 weeks, and then for another 6 weeks. So probably 16 weeks at least. It was constantly draining, putting patches on it until I pulled that little thing out and then it bled that day. The next day it leaked and then nothing. Hasn't leaked since. So that little stitch I pulled out and it
Right.
wasn't a knot or anything. It was just a stitch. Just enough to irritate it. And oh man, you
Right.
go through all kinds of stuff and it's not a lot of fun, but I guess at least now I have blood flow.
Well, that's a good thing. That's mandatory.
Yeah. But I couldn't do anything, Scott, where I couldn't walk up steps or anything. And I roller skate all the time and used to speed skate. So when I go slow, it's faster than most your session skaters go, and I'm going slow and I'm passing them. And I couldn't even hardly keep up with beginners that were hanging onto the wall. I'm like, something's going on. And
Right.
so yeah, I
Definitely
got
got to
that
get
taken
in
care
and
of.
get to
So
take that stuff seriously. I myself have a heart condition, so it's like I get what you're saying. It's just so many stories you hear of people. Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm going to tough it out. This and that, and then it just makes it 10 times worse, or they end up dying from it because they just
right.
ignore it. And it's like you can't do that.
Well, and I never had a heart attack or anything. It was just no blood flow and I was having trouble breathing. I'd lay down, go to sleep. I couldn't really breathe very well, and I couldn't catch a breath. And then I'd go into the ER. I'd go at the VA, and then I went in, and they'd do the blood work, and no signs of nothing. It's like go home, and so like in 4 days, I'd been in the ER 3 times, and it finally started showing a little bit of stress on the heart. So then they admitted me, and then they went through um, you know, a couple days later, I'm going through a stress test and reproduce the problem. The chemical induced stress tests are, yeah, they're not fun, but at least they was able to find the problem,
Right.
and then they did the where they send a dye and look at your veins and stuff. And this is because they couldn't just stick a stent in. A lot of times I'll stick a stent in and open it up. Well, no, one was 60% blocked, one was 70, the other was 100% blocked.
Hmm.
And then they said on the one that was 7% blocked, they started growing collaterals, veins that would grow to supply blood to the part of the heart that didn't have any blood flow. And it takes about 6 months for that to happen. So that was good at that point there. And then once they figured out, okay, we're going to schedule for a surgery, and they sent over University of Nebraska Med Centers where I was going to have it done. And it was like 6 days later for they had the OR available. And the surgeon's going to do it. The one who was going to do it that night ended up with a heart transplant. So that freed up the ER room for the next morning. So a different doctor did the surgery the next morning. And that was good because I was having those same breathing problems. Your heart goes in AFib.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's like what it is, but while it was prepping me for surgery, I could tell it was doing it because I finally knew what it was like and what was going on. So yeah, that was good. And you know, 2 weeks after the first surgery, I'm walking 2 miles a day, but it's just that moving those elbows kept it from healing. And then the second time it's like, nah, I couldn't. You know, quarter mile was way too far.
Right. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, mine when my condition, I'd VTech is what I'd go into, but mine was electrical, not plumbing. So that's why I have the implanted defibrillator and pacemaker in my chest. So, but they didn't fully open me up for that. They just cut right here in the chest, slid it in, and then fished the wiring in through through the slit they tapped in, and
Right.
micro tools and cauterizing lasers and stuff like that, and wired it all up. But you can certainly tell that there's a foreign object buried in my chest. It's
Well,
takes a little bit to get used to, like knowing that it's there. You can, if you were to feel it, you could be like, wow, there's a square in your chest. Well, yeah.
yeah. Well, I can't feel it, but the surgeon says he could feel the plates in there because I'm
Mhm.
not sure exactly, where they're at. I try it sometimes like, okay, where are they at? I don't feel them, but they're in there. Eventually, everything will kind of grow over it, and you won't be able to feel them anymore. But until then, I'm just,
Right.
just still taking it easy. And um, even now, I planted some sweet potatoes before all this happened, and now it's time to try and dig them. And oh man, I didn't dig very many of them, and yeah, I hurt all day yesterday, and I haven't really
Um,
done much today just because you know I I got to be able to get back to work all next week, and I don't want to miss any work because well I don't mind being there and I can use the money.
right, right. We all
Yeah,
can.
yeah. Well, when you're out of work for basically 6 months, you can't work.
Right.
Because I went back to work after about 6 or 8 weeks, and it was just every time, just the movement, sitting at my desk, it's sitting there popping, and I could be there about in a couple hours, and it's like, I was already hurting so much, I'd go home, and then went back in, after 10 weeks, and went did the other surgery, and it's like, okay, I think I 8 weeks before I would go back, and then I go back for one day in that one week and go back one day the next week, and then partial days, and get maybe 20 hours in the next week. And now I go to rehab 3 times a week, and so I got to leave a little early for that, so I'm still not getting 40 in, but uh, I'm retired.
Right.
So I'm all right with working 30 to 36 hours a week.
Yeah, you got to stay moving though. Rolling
Yeah,
Stone gathers no moss.
right. Yeah, and I just I don't mind what I'm doing. It's just I like to be up and moving, and it's always easier to do that. And being a skater, I was able to 4 weeks ago. I went back skating for the first time,
Okay.
and that first night, actually, a friend of mine was there, is actually a nurse. So my first time on the floor, I had a nurse next to me.
Huh.
Not that it was planned that way, but he went out with me the first time, and then I
Right.
think I got about 11 minutes is all I could do that night. Yeah, that was it. And slow. I just couldn't get anything in there. And the the next week I went and I think I ended up getting about 35 minutes total over the whole night in, and a little bit here, a little bit there, and then take a break, and a little bit longer, take a break, and then the third week I got about 50 minutes in there, and then last week I was able to get in, about 50 minutes, but I was able to push it a little bit harder. I could actually start getting a little bit of speed. Yeah.
Right.
So it's coming back, but um, when the surgeon probably should have known that he should have put plates in when my first question before the surgery was, when can I start skating again? He says 12 weeks. Yeah, that was my first question. And it's like, okay, when can I shoot my bow? 12 weeks. It's like, well, no, more than 12 weeks. And then end up being, that was April 11th is when the surgery was. And still, I think I'm gonna have to grab I got an old left-handed recurve,
Okay.
a 25 pounder that when I had my store, I'd ordered it in. It's an old PSE Buckeye or something. I forget what it is. And it
Right.
was supposed to have been a right-handed bow, and it come in left-handed, and I just never end up sending it back. And I might have to make a string for it and practice shooting that one because it's only 25 pounds. So even though it's left-handed, but I guess, hey, it's still the archery muscles because my
Right.
recurve is 40 pounds, and I don't think there's any way I'm going to be able to pull that back for a little while.
Yeah. I had a recurve years ago and I started messing around with it. I wasn't very good with it, and I'm assuming form, so I didn't have right form. I didn't have the basics and the root stuff down. So I
Right.
wasn't accurate with it. Therefore, I got frustrated with it, so I gave up on it. And my last bow was a Matthews, my last compound, and you know what, it we're fast forwarding 20 some years later or whatever, but
Right.
it's all high end fiber optic everything, and you know what I mean. So it, it just wasn't for me. It's cool, don't get me wrong. Trad guys are awesome. There's nothing cooler than watching somebody smoke a huge buck, with trad and like feathered fletchings and that's awesome. Um, it just I don't know. I wasn't good at it, so I just kind of gave up on it.
Yeah. Well, and you didn't have it wasn't the desire to learn because you could have got good at it.
Yeah,
It's just a matter of you just didn't want to spend the time it takes to get really good at it. And when I started in archery, you didn't have choice. There was no compounds when I started,
right, right, right,
so you had a choice of either wood or fiberglass bow and recurve or longbow. That was your only options you had. And you had options of feathers or feathers. It could be solid feathers or barred feathers, and then your shield cut or parabolic cut. You got the different cuts on them, and wood arrows or aluminum arrows. That was your only options you had.
right,
And then they started finally in the late '60s. They had the first compound design, but it wasn't until the '70s that you really was any really for sale.
right. Yeah, that was going back to what, cables and stuff back then,
Right.
like steel wrapped cable or with the like the plastic wrap sheathing on it or whatever.
Yeah.
That's way before my, I don't want to say way
It,
before my time, but that
Well,
was
and then
up
they
before
had
I.
the teardrops on them, and a lot of them had two hooks on them, so you could actually change your strings without a bow pressing. Because what you do is you just draw your bow back a little bit and hook the new one on, let down, drive the new one, pull the old one off.
Really, was that easy?
Yeah, yeah, it was that easy to change them. Now some of them only had a single loop on. They come up and they kind of flared out, so you had loop you could put on either side of the metal part,
Right,
and that allowed you to change the string if you needed to. Um, you know, everything was cables except for the string itself. They were all cables, and now if you have an old cable bow and your cable is bad, there's start with I don't think you're going to find the cables.
right.
Now, if you happen to have one of the PSEs, I do have a set of cams and cables for one of the PSEs. I forget which one it is, but And it's all my stuff, I've got one. I run across like, oh, cool. These first find a boat, somebody needs one, and I could probably get a lot of money for it because last time I heard of anybody getting any cables, they were $100 a piece. And you have to do both cables. You can't, if one breaks, you have to
Mhm.
replace both. Can't just replace one because you don't know how long to make it because they
Right.
have to be made exactly the same length. There's
Okay.
no twisting cables. With the string cables, you just put a couple more twists in it and shorten it up or take a couple twists out and you can
Right.
adjust them. Well, on the steel ones, however you make them is that's your timing
Right.
because there's no way to change them. And some of the cables actually had a piece crimped in the middle that held it specifically in one spot under the cam. So
Okay.
yeah, those were not fun to make because you had to get that thing on there. You had to get that on and crimp it in the right spot. And yeah, they weren't any fun to make those too much. Those back then we just buy those because they're too hard to get all the pieces for them. But I've
Right.
made the cables for them, but several times back when they were there. They were like $20 a set when I was doing them.
Right. That's,
Back
I mean,
back in the early 2000s, 20 years ago, they're like $20 a set. Now they're $100 a piece, and there it wasn't very expensive to do them, but now. If I was to do a set of cables now and you had the cables that could be made, they're going to be, you know, $200-300 just for the cables, and I'm going to charge you probably another $300 just to make them.
right. That's not even worth it at that point.
No, because I'm going to charge you enough that if I mess them up, I have to buy another set.
Right.
So I'm going to charge you enough for it, and at that price, just get a new bow.
Yeah. At
You
that
know,
point, you just go buy well, I mean, you look at the price of any, high end bow now, and by the time it's all done, 1,700, you're probably
right,
close. They're not cheap anymore. But nothing's cheap anymore. I mean, we all know that.
right. Well, and those cable bows weren't your high end bows anyway.
Right.
Those are generally like your, the entry level bows, the PSE Novas, and
Right.
back when Dan Fitzgerald had his name on them, was the Nova bow. They just put his name on it. Uh, there's they had those three different ones, the three different draw lengths, one the 24, the 27, and 29-inch draw length, and there's a little bit of variation in the draw length. You could go, half inch up and half inch down. So you had I think it's half inch, might have been even an inch, but you could change them by where you put them in the slot in the cam. And those are the low end bows, and those you're selling, around $300.
Right.
It's right at the price for those. And that was your entry level bow. Now, the higher end bows, even then, didn't use steel cables.
Okay.
They
But
all use this string material.
okay.
It's only the entry level beginner bows. And if you got one of those beginner bows that is a sentimental value, then it might be worth trying to do something. But I'd never shoot them. You could always make a string that matched it. You could
Right.
replace it with a string just to have the bow there, but not shoot it because it wouldn't stand up being shot. Um, well, it probably could if you served around wherever it come in contact with a cam, and you could probably get by with that. But
So I just bump something here.
yeah, and of course, her son's calling her, and she probably knows how long before she answers the phone. You can probably hear the phone in the back
Oh no,
saying,
no, I bumped something on the keyboard. I have like multiple screens in front of me here, and I bumped something, and then my screen all lit up. I'm like, what'd I do?
oh, I know when it was first starting this, all of a sudden, I clicked something and all the whole thing all blanked out and restarted and it muted me and it's like that's what I did. I had remembered that it was doing that, but oh well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we got right now we're the 27th. So like I said, in a week, in my opinion, it's really going to start heating up and time to see some real movement, some real running, some real activity.
Yeah. Well, our rifle season starts, I think, the Saturday in November and
Okay.
runs for that week plus the next weekend. So it runs for
Okay.
9 days. That's our firearm season.
Okay.
And then here in Nebraska, December is the muzzleloader season.
Okay.
And now archery doesn't close down, but during the firearm season, archers have to wear orange.
Yeah. Same in Illinois. We have shotgun, and we just
Yeah,
recently added straight wall cartridges like 350 Legend. 4570, that kind of thing. Um, you can use it in place of a shotgun. But our slug season, it's weird. It's I don't know, and I don't gun hunt, so I think it's the weekend of Thanksgiving or right before it, one of those, right before it, I believe this year. So it's like Friday, Saturday, Sunday until sundown on Sunday, and then it closes, and then you have a secondary shotgun, and then after that's a muzzle loader, and then there's like a late CWD, season. And same thing with us. Archers can participate. You just got to abide by gun rule.
right. Yeah, it used to be archery shut down during firearm season,
Right.
during the 9 days of rifle and pick back up. And then now they allow us to be out there because some areas you can't shoot rifles.
Okay.
They're one of the public places, it's shotgun or archery. You can't shoot rifles. So I suppose during that time you could use a slug because that is a shotgun, but it's shotgun for bird hunting and archery. So you could go out there during the firearm season, you'd have to wear orange.
Right.
Now the weird part is muzzleloaders in the month of December have to wear orange while they're out there muzzleloading. Archers do not have to wear orange during that month, during the month of
Really?
December. Yeah,
Huh.
we don't have to wear it. It's just something that's weird, but I'm on private property. There's nobody hunting it except us anyway, so nobody's doing
Right.
muzzleloader there because we don't.
Right. Right.
and and then there's a late January season, which is a firearm season, but our tags aren't good during that for archery.
Okay.
Just goes to December 31st. It used to start September 15th, and now archery season starts September 1st,
Okay.
and that's just too hot around here to be out. You have to
But
do morning hunts because if you don't recover and shoot a night hunt and you don't find them, they're
yeah,
probably not going to be any good by the morning time because it's just way too hot.
but you do get the opportunity to take a cool velvet buck.
Right. So whenever I've been out in September, I've never seen them in velvet because I don't see a lot of bucks. You know,
Right.
I mostly go out to hunt does. I won't pass up on a nice buck if one comes by, but I'm not going to specifically wait for them now because we got plenty of tags. Back when I first started, you only got two tags.
Okay.
Nebraska, you only get two deer a year, period. That was it, no
Okay.
matter what form it was. So if you got a rifle tag, you could get one archery tag or one muzzleloader. If you had two muzzleloaders, you couldn't get a rifle and archery. So there's only two. And archery is always either sex. And I would get, I'd get two tags. And the first deer come by, I'd shoot the first deer. I'd shoot the doe. And then I would wait till December and only hunt bucks. But then come September, then yeah, I didn't want to not fill my tags, so I'd shoot a doe or whatever come by then.
Right.
It's one of those things that you go out and when you only have two tags, you're going to get two deer. So I want to hunt longer, so I would only hunt bucks until then, and because back when I first started, one deer lasts this whole year.
Okay.
Well, we
Yeah.
didn't know how to fix it. Didn't it was we didn't really know what to do with it, how to fix it, so we didn't really eat much of it. Well, by the time I hunted for a while, it's like there's one time I went up and I had freezer full of moose, and I'd already gotten one deer, had no freezer space for another deer.
Hmm.
So when we started cutting it up, I started making jerky out of it. And whenever I'd make jerky, the kids would say, "Was it ready yet? Is it ready yet?" It's like, no, no, no. Yeah, it's ready. Done. Okay, next batch. Ready yet? I think
Right.
within a week or week and a half, 2 weeks, that whole deer was gone. I made jerky out of the whole deer. And as soon as they'd be ready, they'd be eating it up.
Yeah. Uh Snack sticks. That's like the big thing in our house. You could take your ground in. or bring the whole deer in, whatever you want to do, or just bring X amount of pounds of your ground in. And they'll do like a 25-pound minimum. And the pineapple teriyaki, like it's like they're like on a feeding, the kids are on a feeding frenzy with that, you know.
Oh yeah.
It's like, guys, settle down with this, you know. And so yeah, and for us, you know, I'll buy the secondary buck tag. I usually don't take $2. I'll take, you know, a buck and a doe and I'm good. That's enough meat for, you know, for us. But now that I have this second property and I have this newer property and a lot of potential there, it's like, well, I might take two if something, you know, walks by that I
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, you can always, if you have extra, there's always people that say, "Oh, can I have some?"
Yeah.
But sure, when I shoot one, come on out and help me clean it and haul back. But they're never there, but they want the free meat.
Right. Yeah. I need some help getting this in the back of my truck or dragging it up this hill.
Yeah, no, they couldn't be bothered but yet they want the meat. And it's like,
Right. Right.
you know, don't mind sharing, but if I need help, I expect you to come help me, drag it
Mm-hmm.
out. But lots of times by the time you're out there and you got your hunting buddy you're with and you haul it out and it's nice to be able to have enough to give away some.
Right.
That it's deer meat's not cheap.
No.
But by the time you figure, okay, we bought a bow, we buy our arrows, or even if you're doing gun, but you buy your bow, you buy your arrows, plus you have all that practice time, plus you have all the time to go get it. Then you have time once you kill it. Now you have to field dress it, pull all the guts out, and then you gotta strip it down. If I always process it myself because I never like the fact that I haul my deer in and the packing plant has a whole line of deer and then you get the ground back, and then when you cook it, it stinks because they didn't take all the fat out. Um, and then I had two buddies of mine. They both took deer, and one was probably 100 pounds heavier than the other one. They got back the same amount of meat,
Hmm.
and so he said something. Went back and grabbed some more meat, and like you're not even getting your own back.
Yeah.
And cut it up however I want to cut it up, package how I want it to package, and I found if you go to like Sam's or place like get the commercial grade plastic wrap, don't get
Mhm.
the saran wrap from the grocery stores. That's crap for this. And you wrap it, take all the air out of it, take the butcher paper and wrap it and tape it up and wrap it a second time. I did that with the moose, and I had moose in the freezer for 5 years, and it's still perfectly good.
Right.
Wasn't vacuum sealed or nothing because when I wrapped it in a plastic wrap, it's thick plastic wrap, and I wrapped it and I got all the air out. I didn't vacuum seal it or nothing, but I got almost all the air out and then double wrapped it. Now, what makes the meat go bad is freeze, thaw, freeze, thaw. That's why in your refrigerator freezer, you got maybe at most 6 months and it's bad.
Okay.
And fish, you have less than that. Fish goes bad real quick unless you freeze it in a block of ice, not insulates it from the freeze thaw. Because they're frostless freezers, what are they doing? They're defrosting, which means they're going above freezing for the ice to melt and then refreeze it. So it thaws, refreeze. Take your ice cubes in your refrigerator. Next thing you know, they'll be gone. If you have one sitting in there for a while, next time it's gone because it's melted it and evaporated it and refroze.
Right.
And
Yeah, I
you
have
know
a giant upright deep freezer in the garage, a pretty large. I don't want to say commercial grade, but it's like the biggest homeowner, you know, version that you can get. It's done me well so far.
yeah.
That that was the upright's the way to go in my opinion versus the chest. You just lose
Yeah,
stuff in the chest.
you get stuff down on the bottom that you don't get to, and
Right.
nice thing about it is it doesn't go bad.
Right.
It don't go bad. In fact, I've heard stories where they've come across um, animals like up in Alaska that have been froze for hundreds of years,
Really.
and you bring it up and it's still perfectly good
Hmm.
because it died and it froze. So it's been froze solid for hundreds of years and it's still perfectly good meat.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be eating it still.
But well, yeah, it's that's one of those things like, well, depends on how much food you had.
Right. Well, yeah, yeah. If the
But
uh if the local Jewel or whatever Kroger wasn't available, then yeah,
yeah, yeah, but yeah, um, it's kind of nice the uprights like you're saying because you can organize them and you can say okay this is this year's and then the next year's you put them down and then when that's done you just move them up and always put the fresh stuff on the bottom and
right.
and that's kind of nice. I do that with my canning stuff. I got
Okay.
some shells and always kept moving them up as I empty them from the top. Next year I just move everything up so I know to get from the top down and it's a lot easier to grab them off the top and the bottom because once I get down and move, I'm on my knees, and it's like that's harder to get up and down off your knees.
Right, right. Yeah, the canning stuff I kind of get into it a little bit. I'm not a good garden guy. I'm not a good green thumb guy. I don't really I don't know. It's probably time related. Like I just don't have the time to
Yeah,
tend the garden. Although I know they make like those time release hoses and all that stuff, and I don't know. I got some friends that are really into that, gardening, and they have amazing gardens, and we'll trade venison or fresh fish or whatever for vegetables, and then I'll can it up. I got a couple cans of stuff going, which is cool, but I do
yeah,
not have a full pantry's worth. I do not have a full cellar full of mason jars, which would be awesome if I did. I do not though.
yeah. I've got a few cup. Was it 2 years ago? I think I had so many cucumbers. I made 100 quarts of pickles,
Wow.
and and I still had a few left from the year before, and it's like, so I'm eating through all those, and nice of them is they stay good for quite a while.
Right.
As long as the seal don't break, you're good. And here a few years ago, um, for creating some videos for my YouTube channel, we got a freeze dryer, started freeze drying stuff.
Okay.
And my son has chickens and ducks and now he's got some pheasant and quail. But he was easily getting a dozen eggs a day,
Oh,
when he was
cool.
laying. So he's giving to me and I was taking and you scramble them up and freeze dry them, then powder them up, and then now then you get your powdered eggs, the raw eggs, you scoop them out and I two tablespoons is as an egg
Okay.
and then that way if you need scrambled eggs or something, take the scoop out and throw it in there and go. And it's just like when it's fresh, there's really no difference in it because it was frozen. And we've done fruit and all kinds of stuff like that. And um, I don't eat Skittles, but one time I wanted to create a video on freeze drying Skittles, so I got some Skittles, and everybody likes them. So we've had a couple more times we've made them just because you know friends come over, they like the freeze dried Skittles, and I'm like,
Right.
yeah,
That's
okay.
cool.
But yeah, fruits works out pretty good, and eggs works pretty good, and we've done all kinds of stuff like that. And that's nice because when you stick them in the Mylar bags, the oxygen absorber,
Okay.
uh, that's your 25-year life food supply.
Right.
And you see, like was it the for Patriot? The Patriot one has those
Hmm.
tubs full of meals for for a month or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
that's all just freeze dried in the bags because they make their own special bags
Right.
with their stuff on it.
Yeah, that's
That's fun.
you hear that stuff advertised all the time on the like prepper channels and stuff.
You're right, right. And it's just freeze dried. And now, of course, the freeze dryers they're kind of expensive, depending on which size you get. We got the medium size one, but um, yeah, there's a couple. There's one brand that we got, and then now the Patriot come out with another one that I think is probably going to be a better deal. But um, yeah, there's a big area of freeze drying, and you can freeze dry meat as well.
Right. Yeah,
I
I've
haven't really done much of that because I just haven't tried too much the meat like that, but I'll have to try it sometime and just to see what it's like.
right and see how it turns out. So you just add water and
Yeah,
reconstitute it, right? And it's
yeah.
ready to go.
The one thing I discovered, like on egg, you can't crack an egg in there and leave it whole.
Okay.
Now, because the yolk is so thick, it won't rehydrate.
Okay. So you got to
So
scramble it.
yeah, you scramble it. Now, what I was thinking about doing, and I haven't done it yet, is separate the yolk and the white out and freeze dry them separately, and then you can scramble up. You can break up the yolk so it'll rehydrate, and then you can rehydrate it and put it back together. But um, I haven't tried it yet. That's just something I was thinking of.
Experimenting with food's always fun.
Yeah. Now you wouldn't be able to do, like a steak,
Hmm.
a fairly thick one. I don't think it'd rehydrate very well because you got to
Right,
get inside of there. So it'd have to be, fairly thin. I think no more than a quarter inch thick.
right. Well, maybe a pressure cooker and
Yeah.
force the moisture in, you know?
Yeah. I haven't tried it. We got a pressure cooker, so that'd be good there too. But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. And nice thing about meat is, us being bow hunters,
Hmm.
we can stealthily go out and get food. If things goes to the crap, we can go get food and nobody knows we have it.
Right, right. Yeah, I've got a pretty good supply of stuff canned, not by my hand, but supplies just in case. These guys say, you should have 3 months worth or whatever. I mean, 3 months that's a lot of stuff. I mean, if you think about it. Three months water supply, 3 months food. I mean, I suppose if you were to eat the way we probably normally eat versus in a survival situation, you would your caloric intake would probably drop significantly, for rationing purposes.
Right.
But yeah, 3 months is what they say. We are,
Yeah.
I can say this probably 99% of American households are, I would be willing to bet, are extremely wasteful when it really comes down to it
Yeah.
versus a third world country, we're poverty stricken country.
Well, and I think, as hunters, we're going out and we spend all this time, all this work to get this animal. We spend the time to track it down, and then we kill it, and then we clean it. And
Right.
we're not going to waste a lot of that because that's a lot of effort we put into
For
to
sure.
getting this, the deer or the pheasant or whatever it happens to be. We put a lot of work into it, and we don't want to waste anything because that's a lot of work we spent just to throw it away.
Yeah. Blood, sweat, tears, energy, the most
Right.
expensive free food you can get.
Right. Well, and then too, saving the hides. When I was still married, had a lot of hides. I had a bunch of some in the freezer, and I dried them out. And of course, going through the divorce, she just threw all the hides out into the trash can and got rid of all of them. So I had a whole bunch of them. I could, you know, yeah, it's easy to tan. Um, mostly I just stretched them out and then scraped them and then salted them, get them
Right.
dried. But the old saying, you don't have enough brains to tan your own hide. Well, an animal has enough brains so you can tan its hide.
Yeah. With the brain matter.
Yeah. And then I had a guy who used to work for me, a kid who used to work for me, and he went through and then you smoke them.
Okay.
And that smoking them makes them basically waterproof, makes them last. A lot of the Indian garb they had, that's how they made them. And, there's nothing to be 100 years old and still in good shape. But now
Hmm.
you take a piece of leather they made now that's chemically processed,
Right.
and, 20 years, it's all cracked away and falling apart. But yet they had this hide that's 100 years old that's still in good shape. Difference is, natural ingredients. And, you know, I,
Right.
I do have a book someplace. Yeah, deer skin to buckskin tells you how to go through all that. So I got it set up above here. That's why I was looking up. It's like I have a bunch of books up above me here, and
Okay.
and uh, the whole process of going through that and tanning them, and then you can do all kinds of stuff with them once you've tanned them. And
Right.
I have all of them with hair on,
Okay.
and you
Cool.
can do
Yeah.
hair off as well. Um, I guess they used to put them in the stream and let water flow against the grain of the hair, and eventually take them all off and soften them up. And
Yeah. That's so I've also read, I think, somewhere that urine was also used in the softening of them and treating of them.
yeah, I hadn't heard that, but it kind of makes sense with the protein
Right.
in the
Brain
urine.
matter, urine, and that, and they just flush them or get them down, to whatever, and for softening, soak them in a bucket and leave it for X amount of time.
Yeah.
But it is cool to watch the videos like on the skinning or the flushing boards where they're,
Oh
removing
yeah.
the excess, and there's
Yeah.
definitely an art to it.
I didn't have a fleshing board. I actually made a conduit square frame and I
Okay.
just poked it and sewed it onto it and stretched it out. And then I could scrape across it and then lay it down and salt it. And then, it would shrink and it'd be tight. But otherwise, it just shrivels up to almost nothing if you don't do that. And then you got to stretch them all out. And,
Right.
I've seen a lot of them work them and then they start stretching them and stretching them and stretching them. And, you know, I don't think I have the physical strength to do that anymore right now. But,
Right. There's
so,
definitely an
yeah.
art to that stuff. It's cool to watch, like I said.
Yeah. Well, and if you need to, it's always kind of nice. What I used to do last times with the hide is
Hmm.
I'd cut a little piece off and I'd poke a hole in it, put a string on it, and I'd take some of my scent and I'd stick on that hide and hang it up in a tree branch.
Okay.
Because if I forgot it, I'm not anything. It's just a piece of hide and a
Right.
string. I got nothing into the hide because a lot of people just throw them away anyway.
Right.
And then the string, get a big roll of string for, a few dollars and only need maybe 6-inch piece, poke a hole in it and put your scent on it, and then if you forget it, it's like, oh, okay, whatever. it'll
Right.
eventually it'll eventually just kind of disintegrate anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll just biodegradable. So yeah,
Yeah, it falls on the ground, the bugs or something are going to eat it up,
exactly.
or maybe the deer will pick it up and chew on it. Who knows?
Right. So, all right. Well, I'm gonna get myself going here. Thank you for having me on. I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of nice getting back on and seeing what's going on in your world since last time we talked. And
Right.
it's always good to get caught up. And I hope our listeners had um, some information that was good for them and
Right.
some stories. And we didn't have a whole lot of hunting stories. We had a few stories, and
Right.
I
Well, it's
know
definitely a
that
fun chat.
I haven't got it put together yet, but a couple weeks ago, Nebraska has what they call a Missouri River Outdoor Expo.
Okay, cool.
And I go up and help out with what they call aerial archery. But they
Okay.
have little round foam discs they launch. You shoot at them with arrows with a bludgeon on it, some kind, or sometimes
Yeah.
it looks like a big, almost baseball on some of them.
Hmm.
And next to us each year was the guys on the tree stand safety.
Okay.
So the certified instructors, there's some there, and I talked to them for about an hour and a half. I recorded them talking about all kinds of stuff,
Okay.
and I'm still trying to get caught up on all my videos over the last few months that I've been able to get the videos recorded, but haven't been able to get them out yet. But I've got that one coming up where I'm going to be talking about tree stand safety, and I'll put that out here. But there's some of the stats that they said was kind of interesting. Hunters, the number one reason hunters get hurt
Hmm.
is tree stands. 80, I think it was 82% of the injuries are tree stand related. And of those 80% or 82%, 80% are from homemade tree stands.
Yeah. I've definitely sat in some old rickety ones.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that one. That'll be coming up.
For sure.
Um, I didn't tell them at the beginning, but if you want to listen to the podcast, you can do it on Spotify as well as Audible. You can
Okay.
go on audible.com and it's free to listen to. I have a lot of people do that because you just click into them and each time one comes out, you just get the new one and just keep going. You can watch the video on my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. I also have that tree stand safety. I'll do it as a podcast too. But and then the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group is another good place to watch the video and communicate with people like myself and Bill and those who've been in the archery world for sometimes 60 years. I'm pushing 60 years ago. I got my first bow. So yeah, it's a lot of fun talking with. If you have any questions, get a hold of somebody, and we'll be glad to help you. So just remember, the only dumb question is one you didn't ask, because Once you ask it, it's not dumb anymore. Now, don't ask it 100 times. But if you have a question, I almost guarantee somebody else has got the same question. So ask
Right.
it. We'll all be glad to help you. And if you have a problem with your form or something, hey, just take a video, upload it to the group. We'll take a look at it. And I've done that several times. And here's what I see as a problem. And normally it's either your form needs to be adjusted or you're inconsistent in your form.
Yeah.
That's kind of basically about it. If you're shooting traditional equipment, that's consistency in your release. That's the biggest thing I see. If you're shooting a compound, the biggest problem I see is you're pulling the trigger.
Right. Or
I was just
punching it.
watching it. I was just watching a TikTok and it early yesterday or something like that. And the guy had a recurve was shooting it, and then he had his compound I don't know, was stacking them in the group and I see him, he's just sit there slamming on the trigger, slamming on the trigger. It's like, dude, I can get you a better group. Just quit slamming on that trigger. Because that's the first thing I thought was fine. Somebody's an archer, so use a release, wrist strap. And so yeah, quit pulling the trigger. That's your first lesson free. And
Right.
they say, huh? How'd you know I did? Well, I've been doing this for 20,
Trigger punch
almost
is
30 years
real.
now. Yeah. And the weird part is when you get professionals out there, or the guys on videos, and they're drawn across their chest and raising up or bring real high and all kinds of stuff. See a lot of them trying to draw it across their chest using their weak muscles to draw the bow, so their strong muscles, and all that movement is just gonna, yeah. And then you see them with the finger up there and it's just slam on that trigger. Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes you can't teach them, so don't try.
Right. Right.
Well, it's been great talking with you.
Well,
I'm
thank you
glad
again
that
for
we
having
were
me
able to
on.
hook in today and catch on what you're doing, and now we can go on and keep our rest of our day going and
Right.
recover, get ready for work tomorrow.
Yep. Work tomorrow and then back at it in the woods next weekend.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for being on the show again. And my name is Roy Canterbury, and I've been your host today on Arch Talk 101, and with our special guest, Bill Iversen, back on here again. And we'll talk to you later. And any questions, just let one of us know.
Thank you.